BBC London 94.9, and welcome to a 1 hour special with PJ Harvey, and Polly joins me now. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Oh, thank you. Good to see you again.
We've crossed swords a few times over the years, actually, thinking about it. But we start this hour special, Polly, with Down by the Water. I mean, you know, listeners to the show will all know that, you know, I'm always fascinated to kind of hear stories, you know, behind the songs, you know, maybe the recording as well. Does that one sort of, you know, ignite any when you do hear it?
Well, I remember vividly where I wrote that. I was living in a big old barn in Dorset and in the middle of nowhere, and the whole album, actually, the whole of the To Bring You My Love album was very informed by being in this old 300-year-old house in the middle of a field, and I really feel like I can hear the view that I was looking at every day in every song. So initially that's informed this song, but also I just bought a second-hand Yamaha SK20, which is an old sort of 70s synth, and it was the first time I was really playing around with this synthesizer, and that's kind of the roots where the song came from. And I forget exactly what I was reading at the time, but I think at that time I was reading a lot of Flannery O'Connor short stories, and that probably was also shaping the way that my third-person narrative was becoming in the whole record. Right. Actually, I often find that I might suddenly become very excited by a particular writer or a painter or a filmmaker even, and the way that they present their work will somehow make me think differently about how I present mine, and I think I was reading a lot of Flannery O'Connor at the time.
Well, we'll talk about the new album, you know, very shortly, but I'm pleased to say, you know, for me and also, you know, the listener as well, that you brought in your auto harp and also your guitar and a Moog as well, and we're going to have some live music over this 1 hour special. But let's talk about this year. I mean, you know, the year's almost, you know, about to draw to a close. You know, what kind of year has it been for you?
It's been astonishing, actually, in every sense of the word, because I really didn't know how the record would be received. We didn't finish the record until March of this year, and it took a long time to make. It was 5 months in the studio with Flood and John, and I came out of there, I guess, not having much distance from the record, but also thinking that it was quite a difficult, like a lot of my pieces are. It's difficult. It's not easy listening. And I just wondered.
Could be a new genre.
I just thought, who's going to enjoy listening to this part from me? Because I mean, I did, and I know that John and Flood both believed very much in the record, and also found it. I mean, I found it quite a beautiful and uplifting piece to listen to, but I didn't think that other people would, and it's just surprised me no end how much people want to come up and tell me how much they've got from it and how much it's affected them or brought them comfort or happiness or how it's just come into their lives at the right times. I've never had it as much with any record I've done as I have with this.
Why do you think that is? I mean, have you managed to sort of put your finger on that reason, or
I think actually it's down. It sort of comes about the wonderful hand of fate, if you like. It's something to do with the time that a record comes out and the nature of it as a piece. And for some reason, the sound that this record creates and the emotions it creates is absolutely right at this time in the world for a lot of people. It's as simple as that, and you can never premeditate that ever. In the past, I've made pieces of work that I feel are really strong and people are interested in them, you know, and it really is to do with just this fortuitous time where everything comes together at the right time and place, and it happens so seldom, and I really appreciate it when it does, because it is a rare thing, I think.
I mean, you mentioned a little bit earlier on about being you know, nervous about you know, what people would make of it. I mean, I guess it's also sort of, you know, quite important that, you know, that your record company must sort of feel, you know, kind of positive about it as well.
That is always lovely for me if they do feel like that, but that's not always the case, and you can't expect them to like everything you do. But I'm in a very lucky position that I've been with the same company since I began, pretty much. I mean, the very first album, I was with a small independent label, Too Pure, and they sort of looked after me at that time, but they were always happy for me to move on. So when I had the opportunity to sign with Island Universal, I did, and I've been with them for so long that they let me just get on with it, really. And even if a piece of work that I've made isn't particularly doing it for them, they still believe in it, that the people that like my records probably will like it, you know. So they've been great, and they were very supportive of this one. Yeah.
Well, let's give people a taster of the album, and the album's entitled White Chalk. I mean, it was released back in September, wasn't it? What did you make of the reviews to the album, Polly, as well? I mean, you know, do you you work on this, you kind of create this thing over a period of months, as you said. I mean, you must have expectations, I guess, of how you'd like to sort of see it received.
It's funny. I've long ago stopped having expectations, and even sort of when I began, I very quickly learned that it's not a good thing to do, because you can never tell or instruct somebody else how to receive something in the way that what it means for you. It's just impossible, and one shouldn't anyway. I mean, the whole nature of making music, I believe, and what I do, is to hand it over. You make it as good as you can while it's still there in your hands, and then you give it away. And then at that moment of giving it away, there's nothing to do with me anymore, and people absolutely have every right to interpret it any way they choose. And so I learnt that at a very early stage, and it's helped me enormously. So when I'm making a piece of work, I only ever think about trying to get it as good as I can for me until it's made, and then it's nothing to do with me anymore. It's for people to. So going back to what you're asking about reviews, if somebody reviews it in a way that surprises me, or it hadn't even occurred to me that people would think of it in that way, I really don't mind. I just think, oh, that's interesting.
It's a bonus, yeah. A different take on it. Well, let's pause for some music and give people a taste of what they can expect from it if they've yet to hear the album. And we're going to hear the track When Under Ether. Is there a story behind this song at all, or again, I mean, anything that sort of like springs to mind? If not the writing, maybe the recording of it.
It was one of the earlier songs that I wrote on piano, and one of the first times that I found this sort of hypnotic cycle of piano that just went round and round again. I didn't want to change it. Simply changing to a higher octave halfway through seemed to be enough of a change, and it didn't want anything else doing to it, because usually when a song comes around like that that's so simple, it's just the same motif repeated, I'll usually work on trying to find another place where the song does quite a dynamic change. This song didn't need it, and I think that's something I've learned as a writer, is you just listen to the song and it tells you what it needs. Don't mess with it just because you think you should. And this is an extremely simple, very short song that didn't need anything else.
Polly Harvey, my very special guest, and that's from a new album, a new collection of songs which is out now. The album's entitled White Chalk, and that's a song entitled When Under Ether. I think the last time that we saw each other, Polly, Her had come out, and if my fading memory serves me correctly, you produced that album yourself, didn't you?
Yes.
How do you kind of sort of look back on that experience? Because I can remember us sort of talking about, I'd read somewhere where you described yourself in the studio as being almost dictator-like or something. I mean, how do you kind of sort of look back at that, that album and you doing it essentially yourself?
But I see everything I do really as stepping stones in a process of uncovering and investigating and exploring what I'm capable of as an artist, really. Something that I'd always wanted to do was self-produce, and in a very, very simple way, that it was mostly just myself playing the instruments. And I hadn't done that, and I always look at the body of songs that I have in order to tell me what's the best way to do them, and that body of songs I felt would be appropriate to try out producing myself, which is why it all came about. And it always comes back to the music, because, for instance, when I'd got enough songs together for White Chalk, I absolutely immediately knew it had to be with Flood, it had to be with John, because of what the songs needed bringing to them. See, with Her, there was I didn't feel the songs needed much at all. bringing to them. And so I thought, why do I need to go into a studio with a producer and bring in bands and other musicians? They don't need anything. I like them like they are. At that time, I liked the rough spit and sawdust nature of these bare things, bare bones, especially coming off the back of a record like Stories from the City, which was multi-layered, melodic, beautifully produced. I just thought, I really feel like doing something completely different, which is usually what I always feel. But with the songs towards White Chalk, they definitely needed added ideas coming in, added atmospheres that I, as a producer, knew nothing about creating. But Flood is just brilliant with all manner of depths of sound and creating sort of panoramas of almost views. It's almost like he creates a view with sound, I think, and I knew that he was the right person for this.